What's going on, guys? It's Justin with Woods to Wall. Going to be bringing you guys a gear review today. Going to be reviewing my 2024 bow hunting setup. The bow I decided to go with, it's the Hoyt Carbon RX-8 model. So I'm going to take you guys through kind of what I think about the bow, give you my overall opinion, share with you guys the accessories I decided to put on it, the sights, the stabilizers, and so on. Let you guys see it in action. Gonna shoot it for you guys, and then just kind of give you guys my overall opinion on it. I think it's an awesome product from Hoyt that they've released this year, and I'm gonna be happy to share it with you guys. So thanks for tuning in. Alright guys, so here it is. This is the Hoyt Carbon RX-8 model. I appreciate y'all tuning in to watch this review. This is something that Jordan and I kind of want to start doing in the future, is kind of going through some of our equipment that we're going to decide to use, or some of the stuff that we are trying out. So that's kind of why I'm doing this today. I want to share with you guys my bow setup, but if you are a serious bow hunter, this is going to be something that I think you're going to enjoy, and probably something that you're going to want to tune into, because I think this is going to be a bow that you're going to want to consider. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go through kind of the general specs of the bow, what Hoyt offers in this bow, some of the upgraded technology and advancements that they claim to have put into this bow. So far, I can't say anything bad about it. I'm excited to share it with you guys. So just the first thing we'll go over is just the overall appearance of the bow. This thing looks really cool. I went with the Origin Highland Raptor camo pattern. Hoyt offers a bunch of different camo patterns now. I went with the Origin pattern, one, because I think it looks really good, and two, Origin is a company that I really support their initiative. They actually have a factory where they produce a lot of their soft goods right here in Asheboro, pretty close to the shop here, close to UR Taxidermy. So I think it looks really good, but obviously that doesn't make a hill of beans as far as the performance goes. But so why I've decided to go with this bow, first off, it's one that I've always really wanted to have. When Hoyt first released the Carbon series bows, I was kind of hesitant. There were some disadvantages to the Carbon bows, and I really think that Hoyt has made the advancements in technology to catch up with the aluminum risers in every way, and so I really don't think there's any disadvantages to having one of these Carbon bows, other than the price point. Obviously inhibitive to a lot of people, to include myself. I'm not one of those guys, just to be honest with you, that goes out and gets a new flagship bow every single season. This bow, I went and shot it in the bow shop, and it was just too good to resist, and I had to pull the trigger on it. Here is the Hoyt RX-8, not the Hoyt RX-8 Ultra. If you're a taller guy or somebody that needs a longer draw length, you're going to need to get the RX-8 Ultra, but you can still watch this review. This is still going to give you a pretty good general overview, as the RX-8 and the RX-8 Ultra are very similar, other than just it's going to have a little bit longer axle to axle length. Obviously, if you have to go to the RX-8 Ultra, that's what you got to do, but for me, if I can get away with the shorter axle to axle length, that's what I want, because it's going to be easier to lug around in the woods. It's going to be easier to, you know, fumble around within a tree stand, and especially if you're spot and stalk hunting, you know, it's just overall, it's just easier to get around and maneuver around brush and everything else like that. So this bow is available in 40-pound limbs all the way up to the 80-pound limbs. I've elected to go ahead and get the 80-pound limbs in this bow, just because, why not, right? Because if you're at that point where you're like, hey, I can draw back that 70 pounds, it's pretty easy for me, I feel comfortable enough to go up to that 75 or 80-pound range, this gives me the opportunity to do so. So I'm currently shooting the 80 pounds, and honestly, I didn't think I was going to be doing that when I first bought this bow. I honestly thought, like, hey, I'll get the 80-pound limbs. I'm probably going to shoot it at 72 to 76 pounds consistently, just to get that good practice in and not have to start, you know, fatiguing it all. I'll just be honest with you, this bow, the draw cycle, the adjustability in the let off and everything above, I'm shooting it at the 80 pounds, and I'm not really that strong of a guy, so that's impressive to me. It's also going to help, like, if you are shooting a heavy arrow, If you're shooting something, you know, with a heavy broadhead, pushing a lot of weight out your bow, being able to jump up to that 80 pounds for me, and then not have to really struggle to shoot and you know, draw back and then not get fatigued as I'm trying to hold for a long period of time as I'm practicing, or in the field in the future, you know, potentially having to draw back and hold for a long period of time. Being able to have that 80 pounds, I think it's going to help. So that's just one of the things that I really would brag on with this bow. With the innovation in the cams, the adjustability in the cams, and the draw cycle with this carbon bow, being able to go up to that 80 pounds and maintain the smoothness that this bow has, it's kind of out of this world. So this bow comes in right at 4 pounds, and for what you're getting in the strength and durability of this bow, 4 pounds is really nothing. Obviously, I'm not sitting at 4 pounds now. 4 pounds overall, bare bow starting out. So next thing we'll talk about is the speed. 342 feet per second is what this bow is getting out of the box ATA speed. Obviously, depending on your draw length, depending on your arrows, that's going to change. So now that we've kind of gone over all the general specs for the bow, I'm going to go into some of the more in-depth stuff that Hoyt has put into this bow that kind of makes it innovative and kind of makes the difference, and has really made it the selling point to where I felt like it was the bow choice that I needed to have this year. So starting out with the HBX Exact Cam, Hoyt has now made it to where you can have 1/4 inch increments in adjustability in draw length. To me, I ended up shooting a 28.5 inch draw length, so that 1/4 inch didn't really make a difference. But as I was going through finding that draw length for me in this bow at the bow shop, I could tell that pulling that back at the 1/4 inch draw lengths, I mean, that sounds silly, but it really does make a difference for some people. The draw length is going to be one of the most important things whenever it comes to tuning in a bow for you. If you're in between that 28 and 28.5, that 28.25 might be the difference in you really feeling comfortable and being able to make a good shot. So 1/4 inch adjustments in the cams. So the next thing is, in these HBX Exact cams, they've also innovated and made it to where now you can adjust the let off. So you have all the way from 75 to 85% let off adjustability in these cams. And that's really just going to be a personal preference thing. So opposed to the draw length adjustment change where you can go from 1/4 inch, now in the let off percentage, that's just really going to come down to what feels the best for you. I've got mine currently set at the 85% let off, and that's working out great for me. This bow is equipped with wire WRX strings, and I've never read anything or heard anything but good things about those bow strings so far. I like them. I mean, obviously there's only so much you can do to a bowstring, but honestly, my thing is durability, and I've never had WRX strings in a bow, so that's just kind of one of those things that we're going to have to see as time goes, just kind of how they last and how they hold up. But the next thing I'm going to talk about is probably the reason why I ended up getting this bow, and I'm going to be shooting this bow. You know, you can have the weight, the durability, the quietness, the vibration reduction, everything about it, but honestly, in a Hoyt bow, this was what I would say sold the bow for me, and that's just going to be the grip. Okay, so Hoyt has put the Vital Point grip on this bow, and when you take this bow and you put it in your hand, and Hoyt claims that when you put this bow in your hand, that it really is maximized for accuracy, and that it really should go ahead and put you in line with your target and really just help your hand fit to where it needs to be on the riser and on the grip, to where it feels natural and is putting the bow naturally on target. And I can't argue with it. It 100% does that, at least for me. Obviously everybody's going to be different, but if you're looking for a bow, just put this bow in your hand and you're going to be able to tell and feel the difference. One other thing with the grip is, being that this is a carbon bow, I know we've all sat there probably in a tree stand and went to grab the bow, or have been sitting there at first light, you know, waiting on the sun to come up, and your hand's just sitting there freezing as you're touching the bow. This being a carbon bow, you're not going to have that issue. It's going to be warm to the touch all the time. This bow's not going to get cold compared to an aluminum riser. It's a big selling point for me, because I think if your hand's really cold, I think it's harder to make a good shot. I think the more functionality you maintain in your hand is going to just obviously make you more accurate when you're taking that shot. So one other thing while we're talking about the grip, Hoyt has come out this year and said that from the Carbon RX-7 to the RX-8 series that it is a 38.5% hand shock reduction. I've shot the RX-7 and I've shot the RX-8, and I will say that's honestly one of the reasons that I decided to go ahead and pull the trigger on this bow, is because I have noticed in the carbon bows, when you release that arrow, it's just a lot of vibration, it's a lot of shock, and for me it's just kind of up to this point been kind of a turn off. I don't get that in this bow. It feels, like I said, this bow, they've made the innovations in the carbon series bows. This bow feels like I'm shooting an aluminum riser bow. And I would say that Hoyt is accurate when they say they've made that difference. I can't tell you the technology that they put into this to make it reduce that hand shock, but they definitely did it in this bow. Next thing we'll do is I'll just kind of go over some of the equipment that I decided to put on the bow. So starting out right here with the stabilizers, I went with the Hoyt Pro Series stabilizers, and in all honesty, probably because I can color match them to the bow. I think Hoyt makes a good Pro Series stabilizer. I don't have a bad thing to say about them, but you know, I mean, at the end of the day, a stabilizer is kind of a stabilizer. So if I can color match them to my bow, that's why I went with the Hoyt Pro Series. Like I said, the 10-inch front stabilizer, 8-inch sidebar. The reason I'm running this sidebar is because I got a lot of weight in my quiver over here. Even in only 4 arrows, I got over 2,000 grains of arrow plus the quiver, and I'm not taking my quiver off a lot of times when I'm hunting, so I want to maintain that balance, and that sidebar really helps you know, offset the weight of that quiver and those heavy arrows. So I really like the Pro Series stabilizers by Hoyt, and I like the way they look with the color match. The next thing I'll talk about is the Hoyt Q80 Integrate R2. I don't have a bad thing to say about this rest. I've always shot Q80 products, and I've never had an issue with any of the products that they offer. So went with the Q80 Integrate R2, and I expect nothing less than what I've always got out of their products, which is just great overall performance. So next thing I'll go over is the sight that I decided to put on this bow. This is the Tetra Max 4-pin. I've always shot HHA sights on every bow I've ever had. I've always had a single pin. This is the first time I'm going to a 4-pin, and I'm probably going to do a review on that Tetra 4-pin later, so I'll kind of save some of the stuff that I want to tell you about that for now. But I do like the sight overall, and I like HHA stuff in general. The sight's going to come down to personal preference, and HHA is just one of those things where I can't really give you a lot of opinion on other sights and HHA compared to other products, but all I can attest to is really that I've never had an issue with any of the HHA products. It's just something that's just kind of one of those things where, hey, it's worked for me and I've stuck with it. The same thing with the Q80 rest. So next, talking about the quiver, this is the Hoyt 2-piece 4-arrow quiver. Went with the 4-arrow quiver honestly just because of my arrow weight. So shooting these 525 grain arrows, adding 2 more arrows to my quiver adds over 1,000 grains, which really just makes it harder to balance that bow out. And honestly, if I can't shoot something and make an accurate shot and do what I'm trying to do in 4 arrows, then I did not practice enough. And what I like most about it is that it's very, very stable. So this thing locks down onto this bar that's just integrated right into the frame, and there is no vibration on this thing. I mean, I've had a lot of problems in the past with bows in the quiver that I've chose to put on them, creating a lot of vibration. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the arrows I'm going to shoot this year. So I'll probably end up doing a full review on these arrows as well at some point, as well as the Tetra Max 4-pin. But just a brief overview. This is the Easton FMJ 4mm. So the 4mm, it's a very thin arrow, obviously. Jordan and I are going on an elk hunting trip this year in Utah this September. So I wanted something a little thinner that's not going to have any variability and be disrupted in flight by the wind. And in shooting these, I've had very little wind drift when shooting these arrows. They're also very, very sturdy. So the other thing that I like about these 4mm arrows in this FMJ, obviously that FMJ is going to be a little bit heavier of an arrow, but in the 4mm it's going to be a little bit less in the grains per inch. So what that allows me to do is, at the length of arrow that I'm shooting, it allows me to get to the weight of arrow that I really want to be shooting without having to put just a freaking heavy tip on it. And you can see here, Another thing that Easton has come out with this year is this half out system. So I have the match grade half out 75 grain insert, which allows me to run just a standard broadhead, and I'm sitting at 175 grains in the front. And like I said, that gets me to about 13.5% FOC, which is what Easton recommends. These are the match grade Easton FMJ 4mm arrow. Like I said, I'm gonna probably do a 4 view on these arrows later, just because I'm so big on them, and I think it's something that everybody would probably like to see. And I'm not bashing on any of the other brands when I say this, but I really think Hoyt has stepped their game up and gone above and beyond with the technology and advancements that they've put into their Carbon Series bow. I really think they've knocked this one out of the park. I've waited for a Carbon Series bow that I really felt like could match what an aluminum riser and an aluminum bow can do, and I think they've done it in this one. That, along with the 80-pound limbs that feel like 60-pound limbs, the draw cycle that's smooth as butter, I can't really give you a reason as why to not go try to shoot this bow. I love it. It's performing well. I've talked enough about it now. I'm gonna shoot it for you guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and shoot this thing inside. Y'all don't tell Jordan. Because I want you guys to hear how quiet it is, and I think me shooting it inside will help you guys see how quiet this bow is for a carbon bow. And a lot of these bows have always given off a lot of vibration. They've been a little bit louder. This one, I think you're going to see that's not the case. So shooting it inside, you can see this thing is, I mean, super quiet. I'll shoot another one or two for you guys so you guys can see. And like I said, I got this thing maxed out at 80 pounds. So as I'm pulling this back, like I said, I'm not a very strong guy, guys. Like, watch how smooth this draw cycle is as I'm drawing back at 80 pounds. I mean, that is unreal. Shoot a couple more. Like 22.5 yards, I think is what it said. Y'all please feel free to critique my form or give me any pro tips or pointers in the comments. I'm always open to suggestions because I by no means am the best shooter, as good as I could be. There you have it, guys. Just to wrap it up, I think this bow, if you're a serious bow hunter, in all honesty, I don't think there's any reason not to give this bow a good look. I know if you're like me, you've been hesitant about carbon bows, vibration, hand shock, all the above. Hoyt has blown this thing out of the water. And like I said, with the innovation in the cams, the draw cycle, everything is what I've been waiting for in a carbon bow to go ahead and pull the trigger on one. So overall, I mean, like I said, I don't think I'll ever be going back at this point. I think this is going to be kind of my go-to. So look forward to, in the future, kind of going over some of the other stuff that, and a little bit more in depth on some of the stuff that we have on this bow. But for right now, thank you guys for tuning in. Let us know what you guys like to see next.